are nightmares.
Guys can have nightmares too, you know. You can get a corner on the market or something.
Many times people make distinctions between dreams and nightmares, and all a nightmare is a dream, which brings really important information for us to understand, but the ego gets frightened by it.
It's dealing with things that are very, very unprocessed, or perhaps not reconciled or resolved in the mind yet. They are about blood, and they are about aggression, and they are about violence, and everything that we're taught not to be when we're kids, but is still lurking around there in very powerful ways in our subconscious all the time.
I know now that I brought him into my world. We all did. Gave him all the energy he needed. Our screams were all he needed.
And certainly in Nightmare on Elm Street, I felt like Freddy, beyond a character that somebody thought up, stood for tendencies of human beings, especially males, to be destructive and to want to slash and burn as opposed to nurture and to protect.
The shadow part of ourselves, our psychological shadow, those parts of ourselves that we don't want to deal with, mommy and daddy told us not to deal with, or our society tells us not to deal with. We push it in the background, in the closet. It gets angry in that closet. It gets angry being pent up like that. And so when we let it out, when he comes out, he's angry as hell.
And so it will come and menace the individual in the dreams, and that's a good attention getter. When you scare somebody, then you should get their attention.
I would say if we paid more attention to Freddy, dialogue with Freddy, get Freddy to cut his nails a little bit, love Freddy a little bit, he would transform into something else.
What other secrets does the sleeping mind hold? Are dreams powerful enough to affect our waking life?
We live in an age of sleep dysfunction. I mean, all you have to do is watch TV every night and see all the advertisements for sleep aids. There have been all kinds of reports recently of people taking, sleeping medications who wake up in the middle of a traffic accident, and the last thing they remember was getting into bed.
The classic example I read in the New York Times about a year ago was a woman who got up, walked out on the street, went to a construction site, and woke up on something like the fourth story in one of those beams lying there. And they had to, rescue to get her down.
These people sometimes will even tie themselves to the bed after a while because it becomes so predictable. They can injure themselves, they can punch the wall or anyone with them. Obviously, after a little while, people learn not to sleep with them, but it really is acting out a dream.
While many instances of such activity have been recorded, no one really knows what humans are capable of. Can a person commit murder under the influence of a dream?
He took this knife and stabbed her over and over again.
In the middle of the night, Scott Falater stabbed his wife 44 times and dragged her body to the family swimming pool. He later claimed he had no knowledge of the crime and had been sleepwalking.
A murder being committed in a sleepwalking state is plausible. While he was sleepwalking, a dream could have been happening, and he could have been acting it out in some way.
I assume that I must have gone crazy, or something in my head had broken.
We know that people can be aroused and their behavior changes rather dramatically, and typically they don't engage in really complicated behaviors. If you recorded his brainwave activity, you might find something unusual during this period, or you might find perfectly normal calculating behavior.
It's open to possibility. It doesn't mean that somebody's doing it in this case, that defense was correct. If you're accused of a murder, most people would do anything to avoid the consequences of that.
The simple explanation is that he woke up and he did it, and he went back to sleep, not that he was asleep.
In this case, the jury agreed, and Scott Falater was convicted of murder. Perhaps even more frightening is the idea central to the Nightmare on Elm Street films. that dreams can be deadly to the dreamers themselves.
There is a kind of a superstition that if you die in a dream, you really die. But I think there's a bit of the urban legend going on there.
A lot of people die in their sleep. After all, it happens all the time. The question is whether someone can be killed by a nightmare.
Sudden, unexpected nocturnal death syndrome is something that's been widely reported in which people die, apparently in the midst of nightmares.
All reports were the same. A person in apparently good health went to sleep and died. Often the victim displayed labored breathing, screams, and frantic movements just before death. The Centers for Disease Control investigated these mysterious deaths, but no medical cause has yet been found.
Wes Craven read some newspaper articles about this syndrome, and that was his immediate inspiration for the Nightmare series.
I just kind of noted it as something that was strange and weird, and doctors had not known what had caused it, but it had elements of the story that were really, almost you could lift them out of the newspaper story and put them into a movie.
Why do you want to stay awake?
Because if I fall asleep, I'm not waking up.
We don't know if anybody can be killed by a nightmare because they can't tell us.
Very few people whom you find dead in the morning are able to tell you what they dreamt before they died.
Are dreams a doorway to another world? Is there something sinister lurking in our nightmares waiting for us? The answer, much like dreams themselves, remains a mystery.
Dreams have always been with us. It's something we return to again and again, just as we return to it every night.
And now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take.